They said this day would never come, but look around you. We are here, we are united, and our time is now.
I am archiving every distortion, every lie wrapped in polite words, every camera angle chosen to humiliate us, every edited frame that has rewritten our truth. Today I am pulling off the mask. They call me many names. A soldier, a rebel, a radical, but I am none of those things. I am the voice that refuses to stay silent, the voice you tried to erase from history, the voice of Africa. For too long you controlled the narrative. You owned the printing presses, the studios, the satellites. You shaped the world's memory of us, and we were forced to live inside your fiction. But the world has changed. The microphones are no longer yours. The cameras are no longer yours. The world you monopolized no longer exists. Now millions can hear these words unfiltered, uncut, and unedited. I grew up in the shadow of your images. I was a child staring at an old television, watching endless reruns of misery. Africa, you said, was hunger. Africa, you said, was war. Africa, you said, was disease and dust and desperation. You made sure the only stories the world saw of us were tragedies. And as a child, I believed you. We all did. We were ashamed of our own reflection. We were taught to despise our own soil, to see our mother's hands as poor, our father's sweat as useless, our traditions as backward. But as I grew, I began to question. I began to read between your lines. I learned that the Africa you showed was not real. It was a production directed by those who profited from our despair. How do you portray Africa? How do you show us? You make documentaries of our pain. You publish photographs of our tears. You turn our dead into statistics and our living into background noise. You say Africa needs help. But whose help built the chains? Whose help emptied our mines, our forests, our rivers? You show us children with swollen bellies, but never the vaults where the gold of their homeland sleeps. You broadcast famine, but never the fertile fields fenced off by foreign corporations. You love our diamonds, our oil, our cobalt, our uranium, but not our people. So I ask you, the journalists of the West, have you ever made our victories your headlines? How many times have you written about Rwanda's technology revolution? How many times have you told the story of Ethiopia turning deserts green again? How often have you celebrated Botswana's democracy or Kenya's entrepreneurial genius? Never. Because a strong Africa breaks your story. A united Africa dismantles your myth. If we are not poor, how will you justify your aid? If we are not broken, how will you feel superior? If we are not desperate, how will you continue your control? You want numbers? Here are the real ones. Africa holds 70% of the world's cobalt, the metal that powers your phones, your cars, your future. But the children who dig it out of the ground can't afford a single device they make possible. Africa holds 90% of the world's platinum used in your electronics, your medicine, your luxury goods. But the miners who touch it live on dust. We supply 30% of the world's gold. Yet our schools crumble, our hospitals run dry. We give 65% of the world's diamonds, yet our miners bleed for $1 a day. We hold 35% of uranium, the energy that lights your cities, while our villages remain in darkness. And still you ask, why is Africa poor? No, the question is not why Africa is poor. The question is how Africa was kept poor while being so rich. Here's how. Colonialism never ended. It simply put on a new suit and called itself investment. It traded its whips for contracts, its chains for loans. You used to come with guns, now you come with banks. You used to take by force, now you take by signature. You call it trade, I call it theft wrapped in paperwork. You call it partnership, I call it polite exploitation. Let me tell you how the system works. Step 1. Create corruption. You bribe our leaders, buy their loyalty, send their children to your schools, teach them your values, your greed, your language. Step 2, make the deals. 99-year mining concessions, tax exemptions, no environmental rules, no labor rights. You drain the land until it's barren. Step 3, control infrastructure. You build roads only from mines to ports. You build pipelines, not water lines. Airports for exports, but not bridges for villages. Step 4, privatize security. You arm contractors, train mercenaries, label protesters as terrorists, and silence every cry for justice. Step 5, control the story. You buy the media, hire local journalists, and teach them how to hate their own people. And when the unrest comes, because it always does, you tell the world Africa is unstable. That's your masterpiece. A continent rich enough to feed the world, portrayed as a beggar. A people strong enough to change history, portrayed as helpless. Do you know what's invisible in your reports? The $88 billion stolen from Africa every year through illicit financial flows. Not by rebels, not by dictators, by corporations. Swiss, French, British, American, Chinese. Names that never make your headlines. You celebrate $4 billion in aid, but ignore the $88 billion that leaves us. You call it assistance? I call it repayment. Africa does not receive aid. Africa funds the world. You say colonial currencies no longer exist, but look deeper. 14 nations still use the old monetary chains, tied to foreign treasuries that charge us interest to use our own money. We pay tribute to those who once enslaved us, and you dare call it economic partnership. You speak of democracy while funding coups. You speak of freedom while building military bases on our soil. You call it defense, but your drones do not defend. They watch, they control, they remind us who owns the sky. And when new players arrive, they repeat the same old script: loans, ports, mining rights, and land. They call it win-win, but the only winner is greed. So I speak now, not as a man of titles or uniforms, but as a son of Africa, a witness to centuries of plunder and a believer that our silence is the last weapon you hold against us. We are done being silent. You fear our awakening because you know what it means. An Africa that thinks for itself will end your empire of illusion. An Africa that unites will end your market of misery. An Africa that believes again will no longer beg at your gates. You called our independence symbolic, flags, anthems, and ceremonies. But true independence begins when we stop asking for permission to breathe. Look around this continent. The youth are rising, the farmers are organizing, the miners are refusing to die quietly. From Dakar to Kinshasa, from Bamako to Harare, the wind is shifting. We no longer want your handouts. We want our hands back. We no longer want your lectures. We want our voices back. We no longer want your promises. We want justice, real, uncompromising justice. Africa will not remain a story told by others. We will tell it ourselves, in our languages, with our rhythm, through our own eyes. The world will no longer see Africa as a wound, but as a force. Our soil is not cursed. Our people are not broken. Our future is not doomed. We are simply awakening from a long, forced sleep. Every resource you extracted, the gold, the oil, the diamonds, came from the earth. Now something far greater is rising from that same earth: consciousness. You call us dangerous because we dare to think. You call us radicals because we dare to question. But we are not extremists. We are realists. We are not against the world. We are for ourselves. You talk about human rights, but your history is written in graves. You talk about peace, but your wealth is built on wars you funded. You talk about freedom, but you fear the day we are truly free. I am not here to beg. I am here to remind you. Every empire that tried to enslave Africa has fallen, every one of them. The pyramids still stand. The colonizers' statues crumble. The drums still beat. The old flags fade. You may have stolen centuries, but you did not steal eternity. Africa endures. To my brothers and sisters, this fight is not against races or nations. It is against systems, invisible, quiet, ruthless. Systems that taught us to doubt ourselves. Systems that made us kneel before we could walk. It is time to stand, to build our own industries, refine our own minerals, educate our own children with our own values, to trade with our neighbors, not our masters, to build bridges across borders that were drawn to divide us. Our liberation will not come from aid or armies, but from unity and vision. We are the architects of our own resurrection. I speak now to the youth, to the restless hearts scrolling on their phones, searching for purpose. You are not the leaders of tomorrow. You are the builders of today. Every app you code, every crop you plant, every poem you write, it matters. You are the revolution in motion. Don't run from your homeland. Rebuild it. Don't envy others' empires. Create your own. Don't believe you are too small. Every great movement started with one person who refused to bow. The world will try to isolate us. They will call us mad, rebellious, ungrateful. Let them. Every generation that changed history was once called insane. The truth always sounds like noise before it becomes wisdom. We are not seeking revenge, we are seeking rebirth. We do not hate, we remember. And remembering is the most dangerous act of all. So here I stand. Not as a symbol, but as a messenger. Africa is not waiting for salvation. Africa is salvation for itself, and maybe for a world that has forgotten what justice means. The earth is watching. The ancestors are listening. The wind carries our heartbeat to the mountains, and the fire that once burned in silence is now roaring across the continent. The age of distortion is ending. The age of truth has begun. And this time, you cannot silence it.